All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. You're just in time for the town hall session. We're talking about the Building Bridges initiative. Legislators say the referendum will kick off either in July or August, and it's coming to you as a citizen to decide which way referendum. Is it a yes or is it a no, and why? That's what we'd like to hear from you at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. There's been a lot of information, misinformation, half-truths and lies on the whole BBI situation. That's why we want to find out what really is in this document for the Wanjiku. Let's start off with Frederick Okango, who's been sent us a video. Before I introduce my guest to you, Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, former Women Rep Nyeri, and also Daisy Amdanyi, member Linda Katiba is joining us online. They'll be helping us make heads and tails of this entire discussion. But first up, Secretary General, that's Frederick Okango, sent in this video message. Let's listen in and tell me if you agree or not.
The legislators have done a superb job so far. They have finally accepted that you cannot amend this bill because this bill is a product of a popular initiative, and therefore the propositions that is in the bill from the people cannot be changed at will. And any attempt to delay the referendum is an attempt to deny the people an opportunity to strengthen devolution by taking more resources to the people. Any attempt to delay the referendum is an attempt to deny the people of opportunity for adopting the word as the primary unit of accelerated development. Any attempt to delay this referendum is an attempt to deny the women of Kenya who are suitable, capable, and competent from leading and achieving the 2/3 gender principle, which is a constitutional principle. Any attempt to delay this referendum is an attempt to increase the level of underrepresentation by denying the people of Kenya the opportunity to enjoy the principle of fair representation based on equality of vote. Any attempt to delay this referendum is an attempt to ensure that we don't strengthen the institutions like Parliament, Judiciary, and the Executive. And therefore, as the people of Kenya, we believe that the time to amend the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is now, because any delaying tactics that can be played by politicians, by mercenaries, by cabals, by even those who believe that they want power, is an attempt to deny the people of Kenya more opportunities and more opportunities. In fact, we believe as young people that delaying this referendum is going to delay the opportunities for young people, because the provisions in the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 is creating opportunity for young people through institutions and commissions like Youth Commission that will now focus on the issues that are affecting all spheres of lives among the young people. And we believe that we must now ensure that we amend the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Daisy, what should be going on in the mind of Wanjiku as they go for this referendum?
Let me see.
Daisy?
I've lost connection.
Okay, we seem to be having a challenge, Daisy, there. Let me bring in Honorable Nyokabi. What should be running in the mind of citizens as they go for this plebiscite?
I think the preparation around a referendum, luckily for the country, this is our third one. We had one in 2005, not successful for the Constitution. We had another one in 2010, successful for the 2010 Constitution. So this is the third referendum. So we could say that we've had a bit of practice around referendums. Yeah. And so what really should be on the mind of Kenyans is, what is in it for me? You know, what is in it for me as I come from Udaya, Karima? Yeah. What is in it for me as a Karima person? What is in it for me as a Kieni person? What is in it for me as a Homa Bay person or Coast person? What is in it for me? And I think that is the question, because eventually we have to vote individually. Yeah. Every registered voter will have a chance to cast their votes. And for women, like myself, is what is in it for us as women. And there is a lot that is in it for the Wanjiku and for regular Kenyans. Yeah. And also the picture that we have is a picture of a house, a 2010 house, which is a fairly good house and a strong house. But then you get into the house and it is a new house. You start to see where is it leaking, where can you tighten things a little bit better so that the house is even stronger. So that for the BBI is actually the process of implementation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. But now, having gotten into the new house, lived in it for 10 years, ni wapi, furniture haijakaa vizuri, ni wapi rangi haikukaa vizuri. So we are not building a new house now. We are actually just implementing the house that we built for ourselves, but we've seen which tap, where do we need to tighten, where do we need to strengthen, where do we need to recast things, and that is, I think, what the Kenyans should have in mind. Forget the politics, because politics will always be there, this way and that way, but much more because the Constitution is a posterity document. What is in it for me as I go to the referendum?
So if a Wanjiku comes to you, the citizens, you've been a women rep for Nyeri before, and they ask you, why should I vote yes or no? What is in it for me? That same question you're talking about. What is in it for them?
I knew I was coming to debate Daisy, so I spent a bit of time preparing,
She's joining us in just a bit. I'm just sorting out some technical issues.
So I just sort of lifted so many reasons, but just quickly. And because tomorrow the president of Tanzania, the first woman president in East Africa, is going to come, actually it starts with regional integration for the East African region, but also for the African region. And we want to put a stamp to ourselves as a Pan-African country. And I'm pretty happy about that because the African trade, there's a lot of development that can go on in Africa. So now our constitution, in those early clauses, 10A, is going to have a clause that allows us to be more regional, a leader within the regional development. But the one that excites me most about Wanjiku is the clause on the economy. We've spent a lot of time in this country on sharing the cake. We hardly spend as much time on baking the cake. And if you look at what what is in the bill around the economy, it's extremely attractive. The entire protection of intellectual property rights, all of the things that the artists have been asking for, the investment, the enterprise, the industrialization, the state now has to concentrate on those matters, and we all have to share in the prosperity. Shared prosperity now becomes one of the new concepts within our constitutional framework. And then we have matters of sustainable livelihood, agriculture, pastoralism, blue economy. We have matters of SMEs, all of that coming on, and then Parliament now required to pass many laws. And the laws around the business incubation centers, the laws of paying entrepreneurs and people who get tenders quickly, the laws around building the economy have 1 year. So Parliament, as soon as the bill passes, has to go into a very active phase of just how do we bake the cake and what are the things that we put in the baking of the cake. And then the one that I like, which Okanga was speaking about earlier, is the World Development Fund. The resources coming on to the devolved units, our devolution is getting more strengthened with the 35% resources. We've done appreciably well with 15%, and I know that the challenge of corruption exists, so that's another matter. Again, new measures around how to fight corruption, strengthening the DPP, strengthening the DCI, so you have the fight against corruption going. But the fact that we have corruption does also not mean that we don't celebrate what is good of devolution. We must separate the two, and we must send more resources down to counties so that the counties can then do the functions, including healthcare and agriculture. Like when people in my own county, for example, GMR, guaranteed minimum returns around tea and coffee and milk, dairy. Now, every county that receives increased resources, if you're an agricultural county, you can spend more resources on agriculture. If you are a county that needs health, you spend more on health. If you are in Diani and Kwale, you spend more money on tourism and beach and all of that. So every county now has a chance to spend more money on what is important at that county level. So that 35% are really good deal. And if you look at the simulation, and I just brought it for myself, just so that I could, for example, just pick Nyeri, that I could speak more stably about. Nyeri, we are county number 19. So we move from 5.4 billion, which is what we are getting now with the 15%, and move up to 8.7 billion, about 9 billion. We have 4 billion more coming onto the county, courtesy of the 35%. And people ask, where will the money come from? You know, budgets, the money is raised nationally. So just as we raise money nationally, we're just getting a little bit more share of the 100%. So more money is going to counties, 35%. But the better part of the story is the World Development Fund. So now, 5% of the money that goes to the county must be spent in every ward. In my own county of Nyeri, that is 30 wards. So now we don't not only have money reaching Nyeri, headquarter, but we also have money now going on to every ward.
Yeah.
And this is the part I like the most about Article 43. So now we can spend the money on county functions, the bridges and roads and all that. But more important, we can spend the money in the Ward Development Fund on Article 43, on healthcare, on education, on food security, on housing, on water. And that, in a ward like the one that I come from, 20 million Kenya shillings, we can spend 5 million on education.
Okay.
There is now no reason for us not to send our children to any school that they need to go to.
Okay.
We can spend money on healthcare, including diagnosis. And I speak because our county is diabetic. We lead in diabetes and non-communicable diseases, hypertension. And even up to now, tunaumwa na kichwa, tuna, Mola ametuita. You can't even be sure kama ni Mola ametuita ama ni shida ya hospitali ndio imetuita. So now we have a chance to do all that. And the one that I find most funny for me has always been why we don't have dentists in shags. Me, I don't know about your shags. In my shags, me, I never saw a dentist. Is it that people in shags don't have teeth or what, So now we can have all of those facilities. We can have diagnosis. We can, and a machine for diagnosis is about 3 million shillings. You can diagnose diseases.
Okay.
Dentist, dental, healthcare, maternal, mortality, if food security is an issue, fertilizers and all of that at the ward level.
Okay.
And that, I think, for me, should really be an exciting reason. Of course, there are many other things about the Equalization Fund. There is fair representation. I'm sure along the show we're going to discuss the women gains, well. The 50-50 Senate, so that now women also have a chance to determine how these resources are going to be spent at county level.
Okay.
And we usually say as women, the reason we don't have last mile connectivity water is because women don't vote. If you asked a woman to vote between water and electricity, my eyes closed, I would vote for water first. So now we have a chance to vote for water and electricity because we have both genders at the floor of Parliament making decisions.
Let me bring in Daisy on this. Daisy, which part of this document do you disagree with?
Thank you, Trevor, and good evening to the viewers and Priscilla.
Good evening.
I don't agree with the whole document because I don't think that constitutional amendment is the priority right now, particularly coming from a government such as Jubilee, whose track record on implementation of the Constitution and the rule of law has been absolutely dismal. You cannot convince me for anything that suddenly they have been caught up in the full implementation of the Constitution. This is a pure lie. And so the intent of the BBI is what I question. All these wonderful things that Priscilla has talked about are well canvassed within the current Constitution, and they have not been implemented. You talk about regional integration now that President Suluhu will be coming. That is adequately captured within the Constitution, which says that any treaty that is ratified within Kenya becomes the laws of Kenya. So you don't need to amend the Constitution further to make any further provisions for it. But the thing that I find very troubling is that at a time when this country is facing very serious crisis, in fact, not one crisis, we're facing a multiplicity of crises, and the government, led by the executive and the representatives of the people in Parliament, instead of convening Parliament to discuss the pressing issues facing Kenyans, they are calling us to amend, actually overhaul our entire constitutional framework under the pretext of bringing us goodies that the current Constitution already provides for, that they have failed to implement. Right now, as we speak, Trevor, and I think you covered it in your bulletin, we are talking about 1.7 million Kenyans who lost their jobs in the last year only, just last year. We haven't even gotten this quarter, the quarterly labor report yet, but from last year's ending quarterly report, 1.7 million Kenyans lost their jobs. We have 2 million people who went into poverty. These are new poor. So that right now, as we speak, we have 80 million Kenyans who are living below the poverty line. And we have 14 million Kenyans facing starvation.
Okay.
We have a crisis, an economic crisis, The government right now is planning to borrow 1.5 trillion shillings. They cannot meet their basic obligations, including recurrent expenditure. The economy has yet to even rebound. I mean, the global economy is in recession. According to the World Bank, Kenya's economy grew by minus 0.1% last year. So we need to start focusing on different things. The thing that is bothering Kenyans right now is not constitutional amendments. And I think it is unfair, even for the media, to continue to entertain the political class in pushing a dubious agenda of a referendum a year before an election. Please remember that the election is actually a constitutional requirement. The referendum is not. We talk about wanting to amend this and that concerning the 2010 Constitution, but where is the audit that was done to say that these are the issues that need to be addressed?
Okay.
In fact, if anything, under this present administration, we have seen a total evisceration of the Constitution and independent commissions, of which Priscilla is even a member of.
Okay.
And I would imagine that one of the things that would be on her mind as a commissioner of the National Gender and Equality Commission is the gendered impact of the economy right now, particularly on women who have a very loose association with the labor market.
Okay.
So for us to sit and begin to talk about what's good in the BBI and what's bad in the BBI, and that is not the thing that Kenyans want addressed.
Okay.
When the president was being pressured by Kenyans to open the economy, they were not telling him to open the country and to remove lockdown because they want to go for a referendum.
Okay.
They were saying open up our country because we are dying. We can't feed ourselves. We need to work. We need to do, we need to do what it takes to put food on our tables and look after our families.
Okay.
It is an irresponsible and reckless government that would push a constitution amendment agenda that is unnecessary, because it is only him who has identified a sort of this constitutional moment. It took the CKRC, the Constitution Commission of Kenya, a 5-year period, actually more than a 5-year period, but then the formed CKRC to actually work on the Constitution amendment. And even as we're talking about taking people to a referendum, there is no civic education that has been done. They are relying on Kenyans to come to tune into programs such as this to get the pros and cons of the BBI.
And that's what I was hoping to get from you.
If it was a popular initiative.
Because you see, the thing is, we are getting into the nitty-gritties of the timing. My issue is not so much the timing. My issue is which part of it do you not agree with? Because Mwananchi will vote anyway.
That is not a fair... Let me ask you, you are saying Mwananchi will vote on something. The president and the former prime minister are saying that this is a popular initiative. If it is a popular initiative means people's initiative. How is it then that the people don't know what it is that they have so overwhelmingly endorsed? Where are the documents? Where are the BBI documents for Kenyans to read for themselves and understand what this is? The BBI is proposing to amend and overhaul articles in 14 of the 18 chapters. Okay? It is not a simple thing.
Okay.
And yet we are being pushed. There is this push and people are being told, mpende msipende. We're told 4 million people signed it. So these 4 million people who signed it, already there is a dispute as to what went to the counties. Whether it was the gazetted bill or it is a different bill. That the members of parliament are saying that only 13 counties debated the correct bill. They are talking about making amendments to it. If parliament makes amendments to these bills, then it means that it is not what was passed. But then this thing is a moving target.
Okay.
They talk about typographical errors. So what does this mean within that? I mean, within the context of the constitutional amendment. So you can't tell me that we must tell Kenyans what is in it. We have an IBC that has not been reformed. The same IBC that is expected to carry out this referendum.
Yeah.
IBC themselves said they have pending bills of 3.9 billion from 2017.
Yeah.
This is the same IBC that we expect to carry out a referendum. We have not done a mass voter registration since 2015.
Okay.
We have Kenyans who have attained the age of majority and are eligible to vote. We have outstanding issues from 2017 that have not yet been resolved with regards to the IBC.
Okay.
There are so many issues. So how you can push us to talk about the BBI and its content, and what I'm telling you is that we must say that this is not a priority for Kenyans.
Okay.
And our representatives, those members of parliament, are there to represent the Kenyan people, not to represent themselves and not to represent the executive.
Okay, let me give Nyokabi a chance to respond to this.
Sure. I think the first thing is that nation building is a process. And, any opportunity that arises for nation building is one that we must take. And we have admitted as Kenyans that we missed that opportunity. Tanzanians used their opportunity well to build a nation. If you go to Tanzania now, tribe is not an issue. Here, we have the first woman chief justice appointed, a celebratory moment, 58 years after independence, and the tribe question lingers. So we now, whatever opportunity arises for us to build a nation, we must use it. And this opportunity arose in 2018. Remember when the handshake was first done by the president and the former prime minister. And they agreed that that was a gentleman's agreement, but it must go beyond that. And this is actually the second handshake we are having. We had the one of 2007, the Grand Coalition government. And then we have this one of 2018. And they say, we have a 9-point agenda on some of the critical issues that ail our country: ethnicity, rights and responsibilities, shared prosperity. And shared prosperity is leaving no one behind, just making sure that every Kenyan is part of this journey. Corruption, devolution. What do we do about all these measures? So they set up a task force, and the task force goes to all the 47 counties, collects information, collects proposals, and I'm happy Daisy's own team, the National Women Steering Committee, actually does go before the task force, shares their perspectives. You remember that in the 2/3 gender debate, it's 10 years we have been fighting for the 2/3 gender law. This is not even the first attempt at changing the constitution. We ourselves as women have had Duale 1 and have had Duale 2 bills attempting to change the constitution to implement the 2/3 gender law. There was the Okoa initiative, there was the Punguza initiative, there was a Boresha Katiba initiative. So these initiatives have been there. The task force goes around, gets recommendations on the 9 points, and then 47 counties, 7,000 memorandums. And in November 2019, we have the first report. And if you remember, this report was launched in Bomas, fairly well received by Kenyans. But then this report was what we're calling a diagnosis report, that these are the problems that we have. These are the problems that if we resolve, we build a much better and more stable nation, which is what we are looking for. So the task force is now gazetted again as a steering committee, so that it implements the report. And that is what the steering committee goes into. So what you see in the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill are actually all of those problems that we have identified, but how do we solve them? And there isn't a right or wrong moment. This is the moment before the electoral cycle. This is the moment before the transition of one president to another president. This is the 4th president. Before I leave office, can I do some of these things? And it is really, really amazing for our country that we have this conversation in the first place, because you can wait for an election, then you have now a handshake after you are in a bit of trouble like what we were in 2017. Why do that? Why don't we use this moment to strengthen and to put some reforms that then help us as we go to the 2022 election to even be a stronger country? And that is what this effort is about. So there is no hoodwinking of Kenyans. The electoral cycle is moving anyway. We have to go to the election. There are no amendments around the term of limit for the president. There are no amendments around some of the matters that people are raising. As far as COVID is concerned, the government must continue with the measures against COVID. And COVID is not anybody's problem. It's an international global problem. Vaccines need to be pursued, the measures that the government is taking. But the electoral cycle, remember, is moving. We are still going to go to an election. Yeah. And we've seen countries go into elections with COVID. Tanzania, Uganda, our neighbors have gone into election with COVID.
Yeah.
So even we are going to go into an election. But then, why don't we go into the election as a much stronger country with the 2010 constitution and reforms that are even going to make our constitution stronger and that are going to make our devolution stronger and that are going to take resources down to the ward. But also more importantly, which I think is in hindsight, realization of the 2010 constitution, a top of 2 is really unstable for our country.
Yeah.
For a country so diverse and with ethnicities in constant push and pull, you need a larger top, a top of 5 with the leader of official opposition well taken care of.
Okay.
Those measures we are not spoiling the architecture of the house. We are actually just making the house better and more stable for all of us, including the people that Daisy is talking about, including Wanjiko, including all of us. We all must feel as part of one Kenya, a more stable Kenya.
Okay. Daisy, this is coming to the Wananchi because whatever the legislators do in parliament, it will still come to the people. What would you have them do? That's what I keep asking because this is coming. Yeah?
I have some water.
Then I would call for all Kenyans, any publicly spirited, right-thinking Kenya, to vote a very big no should this thing be forced on us.
Why?
Because all these things that Priscilla is talking about are all very good, okay? But they actually are very well captured in the Constitution. So let's take, for instance, she talks about the Ward Development Fund. You don't need to amend the Constitution to implement the Ward Development Fund. In fact, I think we have around 11 or 15 counties that have actually implemented it, right? Just the same way that CDF was implemented previously through legislation, they award under the principles of equitable division of revenue at the county level. The county assemblies, which by the way are legislative assemblies, can actually put the necessary legislation to have the money that comes to the counties be divided to the wards at a certain percentage. So you don't need to amend the Constitution. This thing about talking about 35%, let us not forget, one of the principles of the 2010 Constitution about devolution is that money follows function. The BBI does not tell us what functions it is they are devolving so that they may devolve a further 35%. They have even not yet fully unpackaged and unbundled the functions that are supposed to be done under the 15%. And even this 15% has been problematic. And let us not forget, even as I remind you about the economy, is that the economy will determine the amount of money that goes to the counties. So what we need to focus on is baking that bigger cake. You talk about shared prosperity. One of the most critical aspects of shared prosperity, Trevor, is education. Actually, that is what brings shared prosperity. Yet, we have not addressed the crisis in our education sector. Shared prosperity is not about giving people money. It's about building a well-skilled human resource, right? And that is, right now we are reforming our education sector and we're talking about CBC. They didn't need a constitutional amendment to do that. So shared prosperity is not about distribution of resources. It's really about equipping people with the right skills.
Okay.
And you will find that many of those Kenyans who have lost jobs, you will find that many of them are unskilled.
Okay.
There are many things that they talk about, agriculture and socio-economic rights.
Yeah.
But there's very little that has been done. Remember that President Kenyatta, when he was being sworn in for his second term, he launched the Big Four agenda.
Yes.
And the Big Four agenda was actually focusing specifically on those issues. We had this, the diagnostic equipment that Priscilla is talking about. It's already done. It is a whole scheme that the counties are currently paying for, and it is not functioning. So this thing is not about implementing, it's not about changing the Constitution. It's about implementing the Constitution that we have.
Okay.
I agree with Priscilla when she says that the nation building is a process, and we have been so focused on tribe. But the BBI right now is going to entrench that, because one of the things and one of the focus about the executive expansion, it's about accommodating the big tribes in the name of stabilizing the country. Okay? So I don't know how we are going to stabilize the country when it is only a handful, and although people say that that handful represents about 40% of our population, it is still tribalism. Okay? And that is what the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was seeking to break. For instance, you're talking about inclusion. The Constitution 2010 requires that the executive and appointments by the president should mirror the Kenya's population. He hasn't done that right now. What is going to make him do it when you amend the Constitution? You see, Trevor, for me, the biggest problem that we have in Kenya is that we always blame the wrong thing. Right now, guys are blaming the Constitution and that it needs to be tweaked here and there to allow them to do some of the things that they're saying they want to do, to deal with corruption. You don't need the constitution amendments to deal with corruption. We know who the corrupt people are. We know they are walking among us. They are sitting in plushy offices. They are called excellencies and honorable. Kenyans know who is corrupt in this country.
All right. Daisy, I have to take
but very little is being done.
I have to take a quick break on that note, then I'll come back with Jokabi to respond to the issues that Daisy is raising, the timing, the issues of whether you actually need a referendum to fix those issues. That coming up in just a bit. I'll see a lot of your questions as well as your videos coming through in just a bit.